The fire goes out, and for a moment there is nothing. No sound, no shape, no edge between you and the dark, just the smell of ash and something else out there, breathing. For most of human history, night was not a time, it was a place you did not go. Our earliest ancestors, Homo erectus, walking the savannas of Africa 2 million years ago, stopped moving the moment the sun dropped. They climbed, they hid, they went silent, because the dark didn't belong to them. It belonged to leopards, to hyenas, to things with better eyes and faster reflexes and no interest in mercy, and the human body knew this. Even now, your pupils dilate in the dark, your heart rate climbs, the hair on your arms lifts, a reflex so old it predates language, predates fire, predates almost everything we call human. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten. Night was the place where people disappeared, and then something changed. Around 400,000 years ago, the archaeological record shifts, quietly, almost invisibly, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Ancient humans stopped retreating at night. They stayed on the ground, they moved in the dark, and nobody, not one researcher, can say exactly why. The obvious answer is fire. Humans had fire by then, controlled fire, managed fire, fire that could be carried, fed, protected. A flame in the dark is a wall. It holds predators back, not because animals are afraid of light exactly, but because fire means unpredictability. It pops, it shifts, it throws shadows that move like something alive. So yes, fire pushed the perimeter of safety outward, but here's what that explanation misses. Fire was already present for tens of thousands of years before the shift. Homo erectus used fire, and they still retreated, still climbed, still went silent after dark. So fire alone doesn't explain it. Something else happened. Researchers studying ancient campsites found something strange. In the layers dated to before the behavioral shift, ash pits, bones, tools, normal. But in the layers after, the same sites, tens of thousands of years later, they found something else buried in the ash, something that had no practical use, something no one had expected to find. Oat. Red oat, ground into powder, mixed deliberately, applied to, what exactly isn't always clear. Skin, stone, other people. Oat has no calories, it doesn't sharpen a blade, it doesn't keep you warm. But it shows up at nearly every major human site from this period, on nearly every continent, with stunning consistency. Red, always red, the color of blood, of firelight, of the inside of a wound. Why? The leading theory is ritual. That around 400,000 years ago, humans didn't just start using the night, they started meaning something by it. They began to understand that darkness was not just a physical state, it was a story about where things go when you can't see them anymore, about what comes back, and what doesn't. And a group sitting around a fire in the dark, covered in red, was not hiding. They were performing, for each other, for the dark, for whatever they believed lived in it. And here's where it gets strange, because they weren't the only ones trying. The Neanderthals were doing something similar. They buried their dead, they decorated their bodies. Some evidence suggests they used pigment too, but the Neanderthal campsites from this period tell a different story. They stayed close to the cave mouth, always within reach of daylight, always within one step of escape. The ochre they used, when they used it, was applied alone or in small family groups, never at those remote sites, never far from safety. They were performing the same gestures, but they never went all the way into the dark, and we're still here, they're not. Make of that what you will, but there's a detail even most researchers overlook. The campsites where this shift is most dramatic, the ones with the most ochre, the most gathered bones, the most evidence of extended nighttime activity, they're not near water. They're not near obvious food sources, they're in the dark parts of the landscape, the parts with no strategic value whatsoever, which raises a question no one has cleanly answered. What were they going to those places for? Here's what we know about the human groups of this era. They were small. Bands of maybe 20 to 50 individuals, spread across vast distances, and for most of their existence, those bands were isolated. They didn't mix much, they didn't travel far, they stayed inside a territory they knew. But something changed around this period. Evidence of exchange begins to appear. Shells from the coast showing up 300 kilometers inland. Stone tools made from material that only exists in one small region, found everywhere. People were moving, meeting, trading, and those meetings, researchers now believe, may have happened at night, because night is the great equalizer. In daylight, territory is visible, boundaries are clear, a rival group on the horizon is a threat. But around a fire, in the dark, at the edge of both your territories, you're just bodies in the orange light. The dark may not have been conquered, it may have been chosen, a neutral space. A place outside the rules of daytime, where strangers could become something other than enemies. We know this because of one place, Blombos Cave, southern tip of South Africa, a narrow opening in the cliffside, overlooking the ocean. Inside, ochre, engraved bone, shell beads with wear marks, meaning they were strung and worn and handled by many hands, dated to roughly 75,000 years ago. But here's the detail that stops researchers cold. The shells came from two different species, two different coastlines, kilometers apart. Someone carried them both to the same cave, which means two groups, strangers, were meeting there, exchanging things, wearing each other's objects, sitting, probably around the same fire, in the dark, at the edge of the world. That cave is not a home. There's no evidence anyone lived there long. It was a meeting place, chosen for its darkness, its remoteness, its distance from anyone's territory. The fire inside it was a message: we are here, come find us. Those remote campsites with no strategic value? The ones covered in ochre, far from water, far from food. They were probably meeting grounds, places chosen because they were nobody's territory. And when the other band arrived, cautious, slow, watching, they would have seen the red, the same red they wore, the same ritual they knew. And for the first time in human prehistory, a stranger would have looked familiar. Think about what that required. Not just fire, not just tools. Trust. Trust that the group across the dark would not attack. Trust that the signal was genuine. Trust extended beyond your bloodline, beyond anyone you had ever seen before. That is not an animal behavior. That is not even an early human behavior. That is the very edge of something we now call civilization. Not built in cities, not written in stone, built in the dark, around a fire, by people covered in red, waiting for strangers to walk out of the night. We talk about fire like it gave us warmth and cooked our food, and it did. But maybe the most important thing fire ever did was this: it made the dark a place worth entering. And the moment humans stopped running from the night was the moment they started finding each other.